Jomuna clear? Jomuna তে clear? যমুনাকে বলতে হবে কিছু? Okay. All stand by. Going live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Promo.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to everyone. We are very proud to host this year's OIC Youth Capital 2020 in Dhaka. As such, yesterday the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has delivered and opened the inaugural session of OIC Youth Capital 2020. Today's session, of course, is all about Resilient Youth Summit, and I want to welcome esteemed panelists and everyone here today in terms of everyone being attached online. Today's summit will also look into the virtual tour of the Rohingya crisis and the Rohingya camp. It is the largest refugee camp in the world. This session is organized by the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, organized by Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, ICYF, OIC Youth Capital in partnership with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Myself, Naheem Razak, I'm a Member of Parliament and a member of the Standing Committee for Foreign Affairs in Bangladesh. I have been bestowed the responsibility of moderating this session. I hope that our discussion today would be fruitful, and in the coming days we will be able to address the crisis in hand and, of course, taking adequate measures. I want to welcome today in the esteemed panel His Excellency Mr. Masood bin Momen, Secretary of the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Bangladesh, Muhammad Mahabub Alam Talukdar, the Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner, Her Excellency Mia Sipo, UN Resident Coordinator in Bangladesh, Mr. Stephen Collis, Representative UNHCR, Mr. Gergi Gigauri, Chief of Mission, IOMO Bangladesh, my apologies if I have pronounced it wrong, Mr. Mafidul Haq, Trustee, Liberation War Museum, His Excellency Renzji Tirink, Ambassador of the European Union to Bangladesh, welcome to you. Of course, His Excellency Kia von Harbaugh, World Health Organization Head of Bangladesh, and Ms. Nicole Epting, Intersector Coordinator Group Senior Coordinator. Of course, we welcome you all and welcome everyone who have joined us online. Young minds from 75 countries are connected with us here today, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone. And since the world crisis in terms of COVID-19, it has allowed us to connect online, and of course we want to take this session forward and take your valuable comments and opinion and voice the concerns of the youth of today. In August 2017, as we are all aware, a deadly crackdown by Myanmar army on Rohingya Muslims, which turned into a genocide later on, sent hundreds and thousands of fleeing Rohingya population across the border into Bangladesh. They risked everything to escape by sea or on foot, a military offensive which the United Nations later described as a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. In January 2020, the UN's top court ordered the Buddhist majority country to take measures to protect the members of the Rohingya community from genocide. The whole world is looking on to us in terms of taking adequate measures. Today we will take a look of the journey and explore a virtual tour of the Rohingya crisis, the biggest humanitarian crisis of time, with the largest refugee camp in Bangladesh, in Cox's Bazar. At the very beginning, let us take a virtual tour of the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world right now via audio-visual and titled Remembering Rohingyas.
আর নাই হারামে দায়া সিদি মুসিয়াতুর ফার্ম
ফেলে আসি আর ভাই আর বোন আর মা বাপরে
তো জিয়ার দরিয়া ফারাই আসি ইয়া আই ফতুরই
জুনুমুত্তু
আর হেল্লাগান ওয়াসিলা
Ara zenu tu dayashi in dunia saiba seasno. Yarar ezahanot hono tai nai.
This audiovisual was developed by a team of international and local volunteers, and this reflects the thoughts and the views of the global youth on the Rohingya crisis issue. I would like to take this note in terms of the opening remarks and welcome note. I want to request the Honorable Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Masood bin Momen, to deliver and let us know what Bangladesh is doing in terms of addressing this crisis and the suitable solution that we seek.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. It is a privilege and an honor to welcome all the young participants from various countries at the Resilient Youth Leadership Summit. As you are aware, it is the first ever activity under the framework of Dhaka OIC Youth Capital 2020, with an aim to bring together the individuals with promise for a better today and for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that the summit will enable you to learn and craft strategies to build a resilient world, particularly in the context of diverse global challenges such as pandemic, climate change, forced displacement, migration, and so on. You must have heard that Bangladesh is currently hosting around 1.1 million forcibly displaced Rohingyas from Myanmar. They have fled Myanmar due to atrocity crimes inflicted upon them by security forces. The complexity and magnitude of the crisis have already made it a global issue. We felt it appropriate to arrange a virtual tour of the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar, organized by Bangladesh government in collaboration with UNHCR, IOM and other relevant UN agencies. The core objective of the tour is to introduce you to the most persecuted ethnic community of the world, Rohingya, and raise your awareness about their ordeal. The exodus of the Rohingya from Rakhine state of Myanmar to Bangladesh has been a recurring phenomenon. After the independence of Bangladesh, there have been 4 major Rohingya exodus to Bangladesh. The unprecedented magnitude of inflow of the Rohingya from October 2016 to August 2017 caused an accumulated figure of more than 1 million. Despite numerous challenges and constraints, the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, took a bold decision to give shelter to such a huge number of Rohingyas on humanitarian consideration and thus saved thousands of innocent lives. We have ensured all humanitarian assistance of the Rohingyas in coordination with the UN agencies and other national and international organizations. However, Bangladesh cannot bear this enormous burden for an indefinite period all by herself. These people will have to go back to their homeland in the Rakhine state of Myanmar. The crisis is not between Bangladesh and Myanmar. Rather, it is a crisis between Myanmar and her own nationals. It originated in Myanmar, and the resolution lies with them through repatriation, safety, security and dignity. As per bilateral instruments, Myanmar is under obligation to bring back normalcy in Rakhine and create an environment conducive for repatriation and reintegration of the Rohingya, addressing the root causes. It is disappointing that even after 2.5 years of signing the instruments, Myanmar has visibly failed to fulfill her obligations to address the root causes of the crisis. As a result, the repatriation attempts undertaken in 2018 and 2019 could not succeed in convincing a single Rohingya to opt for a voluntary return. In the backdrop of growing global demand for justice and numerous documented evidences of atrocities, the international community has already initiated processes to put the perpetrators of the Rohingya atrocities behind the bar. You all might know that the International Court of Justice approved emergency provisional measures in January this year, directing Myanmar to halt all persecution of the ethnic group, including killing, raping and destroying homes and villages. On the other hand, the International Criminal Court authorized the prosecutor to proceed with an investigation for the alleged crimes against the Rohingya. Simply put, resolution of the Rohingya crisis lies only with the political will of Myanmar to reasonably address the core concerns of the Rohingya and the full realization of our obligations and commitments in line with the spirit of the bilateral instruments and the recommendations of the Kofi Annan Advisory Commission. We urge on the international community, including the UN, to get engaged with Myanmar in a meaningful way for a sustainable solution of the crisis. Once again, I would like to thank all the young participants attending the Resilient Youth Leadership Summit and invite you to join the virtual tour of the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar.
Thank you, Masood bin Momin. Of course, we are all aware of the fact that the gruesome ethnic cleansing, the killing that has happened in the Rakhine state, and most of us has actually had the opportunity to go and visit the Cox's Bazar camps. And as such, I want to actually take this opportunity to look into what the real situation in Rakhine state in Myanmar is, and we want to actually show you footage which has been provided by the international media and donor organizations. Our sincere gratitude to them. We want to have a look at what has happened and what is the actual reality scenario in the state of Rakhine. Can we have a presentation, please? It's a very graphical and very vivid audiovisual presentation, which of course shows the scale of the genocide which has happened. And it is we cannot deny the fact that these people of the state of Rakhine who have fled with their lives needs our support. And as such, the international community, of course, needs to act much more strong and determined way to actually address this. It is a disgrace to the way that the Myanmar army has acted. The Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner who has joined us in this session, he has been in the forefront of leading in terms of the response of the crisis on behalf of Bangladesh government. We would like to take this opportunity to request Muhammad Mahbub Alam Talukdar to actually say a few words. Mr. Mahbub Alam Talukdar, please.
Sir, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It's a very wonderful opportunity and pleasure for me on my part as Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner, Cox's Bazar, to speak a few words on the occasion of Dhaka OIC Youth Capital 2020 and Resilient Youth Summit. The Rohingya people have faced decades of systematic discrimination, statelessness, and targeted violence in Rakhine State, Myanmar. Such persecution has forced Rohingya women, girls, boys, and men into Bangladesh for many years, with significant spikes following violent attacks in 1978, 1991, 92, and again in 2016. Bangladesh has been carrying the burden of 4 lakh Rohingyas for decades as they were victims of ethnic persecution in their homeland. Yet, it was August 2017 that triggered by far the largest and fastest refugee influx into Bangladesh. In August 2017, a deadly crackdown by Myanmar's army on Rohingya Muslims sent hundreds of thousands fleeing across the border into Bangladesh. Since then,
আরস্তাকে দেখি বলি হইলে অনরা যেভাবে পারন এভাবে বর্মা সরকারের চাপ দিয়রে আর দাসে হিউম্যান রাইট দিবল্লা আর বেজি রাইট দিবল্লা যেভাবে করা পরে এভাবে দাসে অনরা চেষ্টা করি বর্মা সরকারের চাপ দিয়রে আর ওয়াবেস নিজে ফেরত দিনলা ব্যবস্থা করি দন এঙ্গিল্লা দাস ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কমিউনিটি এবং ইউএনএ আরও বিভিন্ন দেশের মাঝে জিন আছে ইতনি ক্লেসিং গজিল দিলে জায়গাকলর মাঝে গলিয়র দাসে এই মানুষিনরে আর দাসে ভবিষ্যতের মাঝে নির্যাতন ন ফান তারা রাইট দাসে আর না জায়গা ফান বহুত গড়ি দিয়ে দেঙ্গিল্লা আছে আর এই ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কমিউনিটির সুকুরিয়া এজনের বিভিন্ন জায়গার মধ্যে বিভিন্ন কনফারেন্সের মধ্যে আর রোহিঙ্গার ব্যাপারে হতাহর এবং ইতার ওরে আর তকে আশা আছে যে আর প্রতি কন্টিনিউসলি আর দাসে মামলা দাসে সলভ ও পর্যন্ত ইতার আর সাথ দিয়ে যাইব দিয়ান
Of course, we can hear and we can understand that their frustrations of not being provided a basic rights is one of the fundamental issues, and these discriminations have had a long history, and Bangladesh have had an influx for the longest time that we can actually record as such. And we have to agree that these people need safety of life in their own house, and they want to go back to their country. They do not want to be refugees, and hence the international community needs to come forth and do more to pressurize Myanmar to take this repatriation seriously and make this happen. And we want to go and take a look at through a audio-visual presentation on the refugee response in Cox's Bazar, the largest refugee settlement in the world. And we want to see what sort of activity has been done by UNHCR, IMO, and UNICEF and other organizations. Can we have an audio-visual presentation, please? As you have seen, these are the underlying challenges and the actions that has been taken up by the authorities who are tackling the repatriation and the developing agencies. I want to take this opportunity to seek opinion and share some thoughts on how the international community, especially the European Union, has been a great supporter in terms of community building and repatriation of the Rohingya community. The civil society in Bangladesh has been in the front line in terms of echoing the voice of the Rohingya population, displaced population, and the government of Bangladesh and the international community in terms of human rights for the Rohingya and the safe return of the Rohingya population. I want to actually request the ambassador of the European Union to Bangladesh to give us an idea of what the EU is thinking and how do we take this massive influx of people and how do we challenge the safety of their well-being in Bangladesh in the temporary basis and of course further down repatriation. Can we request the Honorable Ambassador of the EU to Bangladesh to say a few words, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Honorable Moderator, and thank you for having me on this webinar. It's a great honor for me. It's always very emotional to see again the video footage of the camps. I myself visited for the first time in 2017, just right after the big influx. And it's also very impressive to see what has been achieved in 2 years, more than 2 years' time now. From a humanitarian area where people were just grappling to survive. I think what Bangladesh has accomplished together with the humanitarian community, the UN family, and the NGOs to at least provide secure shelter for the Rohingya is admirable. And just a few thoughts from the EU. I mean, as a long-standing partner of Bangladesh, we of course supported this whole process. And I think if I just go in terms of numbers, the EU and its member states, we have contributed some €500 million since the last 2 years. And we're of course still very active in our response to the joint response plan through our NGOs and through, of course, also supporting the UN family. Let me say that, for example, we have decided to open an office in Cox's Bazar for our humanitarian colleagues, ECHO, to enable them to be closer to the source and also expand their activities. So this is what we've been doing. I think on the political front also, as this is an OIC event, it's I think the first ever resolution in the Human Rights Council we sponsored together with the OIC on the Rohingya, and I think that was a success as well. So yes, we've been there, we are supporting Bangladesh, but of course we're talking about youth today as well. And what we have seen, it was good to hear the voices from the young people in the camps. And it's, again, what I can only underline what Honorable UN Secretary General has said, that this is one of the biggest tragedies. And it's probably more of a tragedy for the young people whose the lack of opportunities they get, the lack of future. And so this is something where the EU also has tried to become more active and to see what we can do in this to alleviate some of the challenges and some of the hardship of the young people. So what have we concretely been doing? I just wanted to cite one project we have been funding under our Instrument for Peace and Stability, where we have been targeting some 13,000 adolescents in the camps and youth to empower them to act as agents of change and engage them as community volunteers. And this is a project we are implementing together with UNICEF, and I think it's been very successful. And in fact, so successful that there's going to be a second phase. The current phase came to an end in June this year, so not so long ago. And we're intending to again go for a second phase for the coming 18 months. And why is this important? What do we try to achieve? So first of all, the results we're after is to empower adolescents through life skills provision and dialogue on peace building and tolerance. So that is, I think, very important to equip these young people, not only now in their lives, during their lives in the camps, but also hopefully when they will be able to go back to Myanmar. To make sure that adolescents and youth are engaged in positive actions through their communities. So in concrete terms, what we have done is to establish 5 youth social hubs and equip them with sport activities, with computer technology, provide enhanced training and conflict resolution, peace building and negotiation skills. And I think this again is an example of what equipping the youth with these skills will be important in the rest of their lives and also when hopefully they can go back to Myanmar. We've provided internet cafe space, but we've also reached out to the religious leaders in the camps and strengthening their understanding and capacity to provide positive messages to the youth. We've built awareness of parents to allow adolescents to learn peace building skills, develop storytelling community. So I think this is maybe a model of what could be replicated perhaps on a larger scale if this is successful. It goes without saying that the EU fully underlines the conclusion that the only solution to this crisis will be the repatriation of the Rohingya to Myanmar. But in the meantime, of course, it's not only Bangladesh's responsibility, but the responsibility of the donor community to help Bangladesh deal with this issue and to shoulder the responsibilities. So, and that is what we're doing. There again, I wish to express once more that what Bangladesh has done so far is a world-leading example and should be really acknowledged, and it's what we've been saying. And I was happy to see the small clip of our former High Representative Federica Mogherini when she visited Cox's Bazar and the messages she gave. So maybe let me end here. And also happy to reply to any questions if needed. Thank you.
And thank you so much. I have had the pleasure, I have had the opportunity to actually visit the camp myself, and the last time that I visited was last year, somewhat near about this time. And I had the opportunity to engage and show the camp around with a bunch of students from Denmark and Finland. So they visited and then they were there stationed for a month and so forth. And rightly been said, you know, the education and the health issues and the adolescent part of it is very important. And these huge influx of population, the displaced population in the region of about 400,000 were below the age of 18, I presume, at that time. And last year's data was shown as such that about 80,000 newborn children was in the camp itself. And how do we actually show them that there is a better way away from this violence? Because it's been embedded and they have gone through this atrocity. And this has been marked, you know, as one of the, you know, deadliest atrocities that has been conducted as such. So we need to build more, bring them back to reality, give them hope, give them show positive note, and there should be more exchange of the global youth community to come and visit and exchange ideas so that we can all be a part of a positive note in terms of this platform. This platform as such is something of that sort, that we want to engage with the global youth community and understand the present situation in the Rohingya camp, and of course take, you know, measures to assist them in our own capacity. I want to just take this opportunity to come to Mr. Mahfudul Haq. He is the trustee of Liberation War Museum as one of the prominent civil society advocate. Bangladesh community has been very much positive in terms of taking these refugees into Bangladesh. We are very highly dense population. We have a lot of other issues and concerns. So I want to just take his opinion at this very moment, and how do you see the Bangladeshi civil society is thinking, and what sort of repatriation and what sort of other modalities that needs to be taken into consideration from your end. Mr. Mafidul Haq, please. You need to unmute your... Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Moderator, and we extend our greetings to the youths from all over the world, and we are really heartened to know that more than 70 countries are being represented by the youths. And a lot of things have been already said, and I would like to highlight on the key issues where the civil society got involved, and we from the Liberation War Museum, it's a private museum, but we call it People's Museum, which is engaged in memorialization of our past, which is very important for our history and also to move forward to build a better future for all. We know that when the Rohingya influx first started in 2017 in August, in wave after wave, it was the local people of Ukhia, Teknaf and Cox's Bazar who were the first to embrace them. They arranged for their makeshift shelter, shared with them whatever meager resource they had. In quick time, the government of Bangladesh came forward in aid of the refugees, and even other agencies started to render their cooperation. This is a grave humanitarian crisis as well as great humanitarian story. And our Prime Minister visited the camp as early as in September 2017. And we can say that Bangladesh, as a victim nation of genocide in 1971, decided to stand by the victims of genocide of 2017. To escape from the brutality of Pakistan Army and their local collaborators, 10 million of our people had to flee from the country and take shelter in India. Bangladesh has not forgotten its past, and the refugee experience of our people, as well as the leadership of Sheikh Hasina, had made a difference. And here we can mention that about 60,000 of Bangladeshi people also took shelter in Myanmar. Myanmar was, the government of Myanmar was very close with Pakistan, but nevertheless they were given shelter, they were taken into the camp in somewhat internment. But the places that we now hear about, Mongdu and Butidong, the places of atrocity, these are also the places where the refugee camps were established at that time. And we know that the life in the camp in Kutupalong or in the Rohingya refugees staying is cramped, miserable, and nothing to envy. Nevertheless, it is different from the 1971 refugee camps with lot of death of children and old people, where cholera wave and malnutrition took a huge toll. Liberation War Museum, right from the beginning in their humble way, got engaged with the Rohingya crisis. Our young volunteers visited the camps, collected testimony of victims to process and analyze those from legal perspective, upholding the pattern of atrocity as acts of genocide. The youths who had been to the camps returned as a changed person. To meet the victims, to hold their hand, to listen to their stories, share their suffering and pain is very important. Since then, we are working in the camps especially to reach out to the victims of sexual violence and assist them in overcoming their trauma. The resilience and strength of the most persecuted people on earth is something from which the youths have to learn a lot. In collaboration with Asia Justice and Rights, Azhar, we supported the women survivors to do embroidered quilts expressing their sorrow, pain, and hope for the future. An exhibition titled Quilt of Memory and Hope was held at the Liberation War Museum in last November, and now it has been put online. Liberation War Museum is also working with young volunteers of the Education Department of Harvard University and launched online a thread exhibit to tell the story of Rohingya refugees through their artwork. There are other youth-centric art-based initiatives to build solidarity with the persecuted Rohingya people. A young filmmaker, Anwar Russell, with our support, has recently has completed a documentary film titled A Mandolin in Exile, focusing on a refugee who escaped only with the mandolin in his hand. And we are hoping that we will be able to have a global screening of this film starting in the last week of August, commemorating the third year of Rohingya influx. Here we would like to draw another analogy with 1971 Bangladesh genocide and its quest for justice. In 1971, the major powers of the Western world didn't support the cause of Bangladesh. Nevertheless, Bangladesh emerged as an independent state in the 9-month war under the leadership of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The People's Solidarity Movement all over the world, with strong participation of youths, has transformed the political scenario in favor of Bangladesh. We witnessed similar scenario in the global arena when major and majority members of the Security Council are not supportive of the move to bring the perpetrators of Myanmar genocide to justice. For the same reason, there has been no effective step taken by Myanmar to ensure safe, secure, and dignified return of the Rohingya to their homeland. A strong global solidarity movement will be an essential component to break the impasse. On the other hand, there is a positive development which is markedly different from the 1971 scenario. 1970s was a dark era in terms of justice for genocidal crime. UN was suffering from inaction because of the Cold War rivalry. There was no International Criminal Court at that time, and International Court of Justice was not in action. In this background, Bangladesh enacted its own International Crimes Tribunal Act in 1973 and took a step to try the perpetrators of mass atrocity crimes. Due to political upheavals, the trial could not be held at that time, and only in 2010, the tribunal was established, which has already adjudicated about more than 30 major cases. In case of Myanmar, there are positive developments with ICC taking up the case and ICJ delivering its provisional measure. It is a good sign that Gambia moved the case on behalf of OIC. The first session held at The Hague with Aung San Suu Kyi appearing at the court has drawn attention of the world. It may take time, but justice will prevail, and as it prevailed in case of Bangladesh. The Rohingya crisis and the case at the ICJ has great relevance for the Youth Forum of OIC. It is time to get engaged, show empathy for the victims, which will change oneself and create possibility to change the fate of the refugees. In June, we observed World Refugee Day with the declaration, "Every step counts." The steps to be taken by the youths of OIC has great importance for the displaced Rohingya in Bangladesh and refugees everywhere. We look forward for a beginning of a new action from this great forum of the OIC youths. Thank you all.
So much for your kind words. Of course, we know that many international celebrities, peace ambassadors have visited the camps. We want to take this opportunity to show you an audio-visual presentation as to what they did and who came and whatnot. So can we have a look at the audio-visual presentation of international celebrities, peace ambassadors reflecting on their experience on visiting the camps, please?
The people responsible for human rights violations must be held accountable for their actions. While UNHCR is ready to support efforts to improve conditions, there have been very little progress on the ground. The Rohingya cannot return to Myanmar at this time. It was deeply upsetting to meet the families who have been known and have only known persecution and statelessness their whole lives, who speak of being treated like cattle. And finally, and more importantly, to the Rohingya refugees, I want to say, I am humble and proud to write the standard term today, but only when they feel it is safe, you have every right to live in security. They know that their rights will be free to practice your religion and to coexist with people of other faiths and ethnicities. You have every right not to be stateless. And the way you have been treated.
I just want the world to understand it doesn't matter where a child is from, it doesn't matter what the child's history was, it doesn't matter what their religion is, what their race is, what their caste or creed or any of these things are. What matters is each child contributes to the future of the world, and that's why it's our problem. That's why all of these children who will or could be a completely lost generation is our problem.
First impression when you visit these camps right away is that nobody would live there if they had a choice. It's hot, dry, there's no trees. And the people we met seemed to be thoroughly defeated.
Outside the mega camp of the Cox's Bazar refugee camp in Bangladesh. I'm here with UNICEF. We're here with Saira, who is the chief of nutrition. Supporting the refugee children, they support the communities that host the refugees. So these communities have, in a year taken in millions and millions and millions of refugees.
I'm Kristen Davis, and I'm a Goodwill Ambassador for the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. I'm here in Bangladesh at the Kutupalong refugee camp, where over 600,000 Rohingya refugees have arrived since August 25th. Please, Canada, if you can, donate to the Rohingya refugees. Everything you give makes such a difference. UNHCR is here on the ground helping these very vulnerable people, and your donations really matter.
It is very important we are here because what the Rohingya people are going through are despicable and is very, very tragic. It should not be allowed. Every single one of them deserves to have the human rights that it should be given to them. It is your way to show the people of the Rohingya people that they have hope because we care. And by showing that we care, we can help to make this world a better place.
The scale, the scope of the Rohingya crisis is enormous. The Rohingya refugees have experienced targeted violence, human rights abuses and horrific journeys fleeing Myanmar. And now, as monsoon season approaches, the Bangladesh government, UNHCR and its partners are working flat out to avoid an emergency within an emergency. As you can see, it is as soon as a rain comes, this whole thing and all of the houses that are up here are just going to wash right down. It's incredibly worrying, and really there's nowhere else for these people to go. I knew the scale of the Rohingya crisis was enormous, but it's very difficult standing at the high point in Kutupalong to really explain the vastness of it.
ここに初めて来てみて、本当にこのキャンプの大きさというものを、規模の大きさを感じましたし。子どもたちとは、本当にサッカーボール一つあれば、コミュニケーションが取れるというか、そういう部分では、僕がというよりはサッカーに、助けられている部分はあるんですけど。
We just saw, very emotional experience shared by prominent international celebrities and peace ambassadors. I know we have crossed 1.5 hour mark, so I want to expedite our program and just take it up and take a little bit, make it a little bit faster into our programs. We want to finish in 2 hours time. Of course, I want to take this opportunity to talk to our host community, youth host communities. This is Bangladesh is a densely populated country. On top of it, we are having to take in a very densely populated camp. The camps are very densely populated. One house to the other may have about 1 feet to 2 feet distance. And we have to ensure all their protections, in terms of health rights and other things. This camp is holding almost over 800 100,000 people. So I want to take this opportunity and a very short comments from our host community. Can we have the host community connected, and we want to hear their words and their thoughts on it.
কথা হইলে আর যেন জায়গা সম্পদ আছিল আর কোলা গড়ি বাগান গড়ি হাটল বাগান আম বাগান গড়ি চলতাম ওই জায়গাত মাঝে তারা ঘরে গিয়ে সম্পূর্ণ ঘরে গিয়ে চলাফেরা করতে টিয়া পয়সা হামাইতে অনেক সমস্যা হয়ে গিয়ে আর তখন অনেক টিয়া পয়সা রোজগার নাই অনেক কাজকর্ম নাই এই
রোহিঙ্গারা আসার পরে আর সমস্যা হইলে আর যে জমি জবা আছিল এটা সম্পূর্ণ তারা ঘর বাড়ি ঘুরে ফেলে আর যেন খেত হলা জমি আসছিল এনে তো ঘর বাড়ি ঘুরে ফেলে যার কারণে আর ঘর বাড়ি সারাতে ফ্যামিলি সারাতে কষ্ট হয়ে গিয়ে আর কোনো খেত কলা ঘুরি না পারির ধান খেত ঘুরি না পারির আর যে মাঠ আসছিল পোলা মাঠ আসছিল অনেক খেলাধুলা করতো এনে বন্ধ হয়ে গিয়ে আর তো যে আগে হামাই করতাম আয় করতাম এনে এডে ঘরের হাসি পিসা আর ঘুরি না পারি আর তো বেশ দূরে জোর করি যার কারণে আর ফ্যামিলি সারাতে আর ঘর বাড়ি ফোন চলাফেরা করতে অনেক বেশি কি কষ্ট হয়ে গিয়ে
So as we see, it's not only about the displaced refugee population that we have to accustom to, but it is also the local population that have been affected. And through our conversation and our thoughts, we have heard about the degradation, the deforestation that has happened. The RRC has mentioned, Mr. Talukdar has mentioned the vast population being settled up there, the effects that has had with the local community. So these are other challenges nationally that we need to actually address to. I want to go forth and just show you a audio-visual presentation on global leaders, their deliberation on the crisis and reflecting on the visit of the camp. Can we have a short audio-visual, please?
Indonesia appreciates the effort of the government Bangladesh in addressing this refugee issue. Since the beginning, Indonesia has been in close coordination with the government of Bangladesh on the actual need on the ground. As a country that upholds the values of humanity, we must continue to nurture this form of solidarity. Thank you.
We are working with Bangladesh, but also with Myanmar. And we are also in contact with Myanmar to address this issue. But I think we are not alone. And we have now agreements, written agreements, and there is a need to implement these agreements with respect for the people. And that's why I was mentioning before that the return have to be voluntary, they have to be safe in security and in dignity for the people. And I think we have now the agreements, and we have now to see how is it possible to implement these agreements in favor of the person living here.
The whole country, whole world should pay the concern so that the Burmese authorities can start negotiating and start discussing among themselves how to resolve it in a political way, not with the army, not with atrocities, not with killing people. That's not a solution at all.
We need to find a lasting solution. Therefore, international community should be more sensitive and should be more local. Of course, we should be in touch with the authorities in Myanmar, and they have the responsibility. But as the international community, we should help them to find a lasting solution. And they admit, first of all, that there is a problem, and we need to seek a way out of the problem.
The influx of Rohingya refugees has had a significant impact on the communities of Cox's Bazar. So Canada will take an approach that includes and supports all of the vulnerable population in Cox's Bazar district. We will support development efforts in key areas defined by Government of Bangladesh: health, environmental rehabilitation, and the empowerment and livelihoods and education of women and girls.
Is that we are in touch with the Bangladesh government. And again, at the UN meetings last week, in fact, there were several side meetings as well. And my sense is, I mean, there are commitments for additional humanitarian assistance by various countries, including, as you quite rightly said, the United States. But my concern goes beyond just humanitarian assistance. You actually need a long-term solution. And a long-term solution is a political solution. In addition to that, you also want to have deterrence for future bouts of violence. And that's why having independent commissions of inquiry, and that's why holding people accountable is important.
Happy to learn that the visit has been accepted in principle by Bangladesh, and I hope that the date will be fixed and that can take place sometime in the very near future. One of the ways to resolve this migration is to look at the root causes. And I think the first thing that has to be in place is the security. Is the safety is provided, and of course now Myanmar government, Myanmar military have reiterated again and again that the security is provided. But I think it has to be the Myanmar government and Myanmar apparatus who would be saying this to the refugees themselves. And I think if the first batch of refugees decided to come and they can see for themselves that it's safe for them to return, then, you know, words of mouth would go to the rest, and then they would come.
Thank you so much. Of course, we at this very present time, the world is succumbed to major global crisis in the form of COVID-19. You know, with the existing health issues that is prevailing in the refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, this new crisis has taken another importance, so to speak. So I would like to, at this very moment, request the World Health Organization, because they have been in the forefront of tackling COVID-19, at the same time ensuring the health and other aspects in the camps itself. I want to request, and it's a pleasure to introduce Mr. Kai von Harbour, the World Health Organization. He has joined us. Could we have your delivery, please?
Thank you, Honorable Moderator, and thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for organizing this important event, and thank you to the OIC Youth Group for your interest in our work. It is an honor for me to present among such distinguished speakers and give a very brief update about the situation here from the field. As of today, we have 70 confirmed cases of COVID-19, including 6 deaths in the Rohingya population, and more than 3,200 cases and 53 deaths among the host population in Cox's Bazar district. As you are all aware, the very crowded living conditions in the Rohingya camps make traditional containment measures like physical distancing that were applied successfully in other places of the world very difficult to implement. And this leaves the population so vulnerable for COVID-19. Luckily, to date, we have not seen a massive surge in patients, but we need to stay vigilant and prepare for a rapid increase in cases on short notice at any time. This is a lesson we have learned from other places in the world. And this is why, as a collective effort under the leadership of the government, and with our more than 100 partners from the health sector, as well as all the other sectors providing services here in Cox's Bazar, over the past months, we have built capacities to identify and treat COVID-19 patients through expanding and adapting a disease surveillance system in the camps, strengthening the IEDCR field laboratory at the Medical College here in Cox's Bazar to be able to rapidly confirm any suspect cases, build capacity for outbreak investigation and contact tracing, and setting up facilities with more than 1,000 beds that can provide life-saving treatment for mild, moderate, and severe COVID-19 patients. All of these services are available for the Rohingya population as well as the host population here in Cox's Bazar. The past months have proven once again how essential risk communication is. We have seen that if we manage to explain our recommendations and decisions better, they have much more impact. We have seen this on the global level as well as here on the local level. Community engagement is a key area of concern for the response in the Rohingya camps, and we focus a lot of our effort on enhancing healthcare-seeking behavior among the population, working intensively with other sectors on reaching out to the community through community health workers and other volunteers to address rumors and misconceptions that are unfortunately widespread. While preparing and responding to COVID-19, we have to minimize the secondary impact of this pandemic on the population. What we have learned from other major outbreaks in the past is that the excess mortality and morbidity from other causes can be higher than from the disease itself due to the disruption of routine health services and decreased utilization from the population. This is why we put a strong focus on the maintenance of essential health services. In particular, we must continue to do all we can to avoid a simultaneous outbreak of a vaccine-preventable disease in the camp. This would be very difficult to manage. This is why we are working very hard together with our partners and under the strong leadership of the government of Bangladesh to ensure that immunization programs are sustained. Dear young leaders of the OIC, I would like to close this brief intervention by highlighting that what we have seen in many places around the world is that the rate of transmission of COVID-19 among the community is largely driven by individual behaviors. And in this regard, all of us have an important role to play in this pandemic. It is important that we continue to follow the rules established by the local health authorities to limit the spread of the disease. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the government of Bangladesh, the Deputy Commissioner, the RRC, the civil surgeon, and all our partners for the excellent collaboration and leadership in these difficult times.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your valuable opinion and thoughts. I want to extend my request to Ms. Nicole Epting, the Senior Coordinator, Intersector Coordination Group, to say a few words, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Moderator and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at the OIC Youth Leadership Summit. I'm very happy to be with you. As mentioned, my name is Nicole Epting. I work as the coordinator for the Rohingya refugee response for the humanitarian community in Cox's Bazar. I am sorry to hear that you were not able to come and visit us in person. We were looking forward to welcoming you here in Cox's Bazar, but I am happy that we are able to gather together online. So I've also been asked to say a few words about the situation during the COVID pandemic here in Cox's Bazar. The humanitarian community is, as my colleague mentioned, working very closely with and in support of the government of Bangladesh to mitigate and respond to the impact of the pandemic, both on the Rohingya refugees, as well as the Bangladeshi communities who've hosted them for years. Together, we are providing a multi-sector response that addresses the health priorities while also continuing life-saving activities as well. Since already end March, early April, the humanitarian community, and by this I mean around 150 different organizations, United Nations agencies, national NGOs, international NGOs, we have all significantly reduced the number of humanitarian staff working on the ground, those traveling to and from the refugee camps, in order to limit the spread of the virus. And we are delivering only the most critical services to both the refugees and the host community. This has meant a reduction of approximately 80% of the staff of delivering services in support to over 860,000 refugees in 34 camps, as well as the Bangladeshi host community. As such, we have turned to the community themselves. They are resilient and very capable, and we've had to rely on them in this extraordinary situation. We've strengthened the capacity of the Rohingya refugee volunteers and the Bangladeshi volunteers who are working on the ground. And to the extent possible, we've put in place alternative modalities to ensure the continuation of critical services remotely in some cases. And we've tried, for example, to combine services and distribution when possible. One key activity, as mentioned already by my colleague from WHO, is building the capacity of health facilities in the context of the COVID-19 response, including increasing the number of intensive care beds in the district. And we are proud to say, as my colleague mentioned, that we have already set up 10 isolation and treatment centers in the district, and soon we'll have 17 isolation and treatment centers for the most severe cases. And these are open to and being used by both Bangladeshis in the host community as well as Rohingya refugees who are COVID-19 positive. Additionally, in the camps, we've been working on mechanisms to support Rohingya refugees who are asymptomatic or have mild cases to stay in their shelters and receive assistance in place, and have paid special attention to older persons in the camps who are particularly at risk. We've been supporting them through targeted messaging. We will be helping them also with home deliveries of non-food items such as liquid petroleum gas or shelter items, food items, and healthcare. We've made sure that we have been able to provide meaningful access to specialized services for persons at heightened risk. That could be girls, boys, men, and women of all ages who have diverse needs and vulnerabilities. For example, we of course always aim to continue quality child protection services and continued access to gender-based violence survivor-centered services as well. We're paying close attention to the young, malnourished boys and girls, and the pregnant and lactating women, for example, to ensure they receive essential nutrition services. It's also important, as my colleague from WHO mentioned, to continue the normal essential health services, including routine immunization programs. There are other programs that have been severely disrupted in many places around the world, not only here, but also in the camps and in Bangladesh, which is learning. So in the camps, we are working to continue to see continued access through home-based learning, building the capacity of caretakers and teachers in the camps to support children at home, and looking at innovative ways to share learning materials. But as the largest refugee camp in the world, and as you can see in the photo behind me, one of the most densely populated places on Earth, you can imagine that in the overcrowded conditions, the potential for the rapid spread of COVID-19 and other communicable diseases is quite high. So we have put in place a series of mitigation measures with the authorities. My colleague from WHO mentioned physical distancing, for example, at food distribution sites. We've very much promoted the production, the distribution, and the promotion of the use of masks. We've set up over 80,000 hand washing stations throughout the camps, as well as at the entry points to the camps. And on a weekly basis, we're disinfecting some 40,000 facilities, including latrines, showers, and public buildings, both in the camps and in the host community. We've increased the distribution of soap, enhanced the promotion of hygiene practices, and sadly, but necessarily, we have strengthened the safe and dignified burial management practices. This is, however, it's important to remind ourselves that this pandemic is not only a health crisis, but also a socioeconomic one. And there's a lot of work that's being done to ensure, for example, plantation activities continue, both in the refugee camp and the host community, to take advantage of the planting season now, for the harvesting later, and to focus in particular in the host community on compensating for the loss of livelihoods of the most vulnerable Bangladeshis, whose livelihoods have been impacted by the pandemic. And for that, food production support as well as cash support is being provided to help alleviate the situation. I'll end by saying that key in all of these activities is indeed to put the communities themselves at the center of our response. Not only those assisting as volunteers, as mentioned earlier, but also those in need of assistance, to engage with them, to listen to them, to hear their suggestions and their solutions, and to ensure that we integrate gender dimensions into our programming, that we are inclusive in our approach and sensitive to the needs of diverse groups in the communities. We've really spent a lot of time enhancing our communication with communities to promote awareness of COVID-19, of testing, of treatment facilities, the use of masks, working to really build trust with the communities. It's really important that everyone has information on how they can and why they should protect themselves and understand the services available to them. So I will stop there, but I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to give you a glimpse into the situation here in Cox's Bazar during the pandemic. And I thank as well the Deputy Commissioner, the RRC, and all of the colleagues here today for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you for your very important interventions, and I would like to take this opportunity to showcase and show you an audiovisual presentation as to how these organizations and volunteers have worked tirelessly in responding to COVID-19 in Cox's Bazar refugee settlements. This audiovisual presentation is in the courtesy of UNHCR. Thank you. Can we have a look at the audiovisual presentation, please?
Taking my life in my hands to be standing here in the middle of the road. The Rohingya refugees are taking shelter in their homes. Fortunately, there are no confirmed cases yet. This is one of the most crowded places on earth, with over 859,000 refugees living in very, very close quarters. We are in a race against time.
We trained 1,200 community health workers to spread messages on hygiene prevention, on what is COVID, what are signs and symptoms, how can you prevent it as a family, and how can social distancing contribute.
UNHCR Cox's Bazar has taken all the initiatives to double the distribution of soap as well as distribution of female hygiene kits in the camp. There are standard queues, maintaining safe distance from each other.
Fortunately, there are no confirmed cases yet in the settlements, but we do have the sense that it's only a matter of time, and that's why we're working as fast as we can to put the preparations in place that will allow us to respond.
Thank you to our guests and panelists. We have had a very fruitful, long discussion, and of course, in the time of COVID, we do need to appreciate the health workers, the community volunteers, that they have worked tirelessly and they have taken this initiative to ensure the safety of these refugee settlers in Cox's Bazar. We want to take this opportunity to listen to two young representatives of the Rohingya communities, what and how their journey has been to ensure their rights and getting justice, and then of course we will be closing our formal session, and later on we have a whole bunch of questionnaires and a lot of opinions and questions from the 75 country representatives who are with us. So can we have a short interview of the two young refugees, what they have seen and experienced, please?
Arab to Bangladesh maza saat daya jago jide Burma sarkar arar farare ondara jine fara kolgor kolbigin fura devela ek number to du number maza arar dase babbai dase arar zone ki jwan murtwan kol murtwan jona se hun nore doruli jel je guli mari mari feli je tohon maya phone kol military kol doruli lo jaine rep bujje zulum bujje e karone daya dase arar tu arar gorbare fura dono doriya ondara di ennestona afad gele haran dase arar tu Bangladesh daya Burma sarkare e Rohingya kol lo jaiballa saat de Kerala Rohingya kol lo jaiballa saat di aragtun Rohingya nil নিজেরে ইবা মান্যং হই লজাইরে এবার হতাই মান নমানে ইবা আইন কানুন নমানোর জরিয়া আবারও নিজে জুলুম করে মানছরে ইয়াইও লজাইরে না মান্য হই লজা জুলুম করিবার লাই ইতে পলিটিক্যাল করি লজাইরে দাস মানি মানছরে জুলুম করিবার সাথ দে এ হতর তোরা নজাই মিতে আইন কানুন নমানে দে বর্মার সরকার আর যদি যেদুন কম ক্লাসে বেগুন 1 ডল্লা করা পড়বে 1 নম্বর মাঝে 1 ডল্লা করলে বেগুন জাত ফরক নগরীরে 1 ডল্লা করিয়ে যদি সে চালায় আর নিশ্চিন্ত ঠিকানা আর দিয়া পড়ব আর যেদিন জিনিস নির্যাতন করছেন আর দিয়া পড়ব আর জায়গা জমিন আর দিয়া পড়ব আর হক আর দিয়া পড়ব আর তু আর ফোন সরকারের মাঝে লোয়া পড়ব মিলিটারির তা পড়ব পুলিশের তা পড়ব মাস্টরির ডাক্তারির বেগিনের তা পড়ব তাহলে জায়গা যাই পারা পড়ব যেন নাকি সারা দেশের মাঝে দিন নাকি চলাফেরা করি পারে কম করে হিনলা করে চলাফেরা করি পারা আর তো শান্তি পাওয়া পড়ব তাহলে হতার তো যাই যাই মারা সারা বিশ্বত বর্মা সরকারের যেদু সাপ দিয়া করে যেদু ধরা বাঁধা ঘুরিয়ে আছে আর আইন কানুন মানি বললা আর জুলুম নগরী বললা মানে রোহিঙ্গারে তাহলে আর হক আর লইয়া ঘুরিব আর নেশনিটি আর লইয়া ঘুরিব তাহলে আর যেন নাকি শান্তি করি তাই পারিমান আর হক আর লই দিলে দুনিয়ায় যদি আর শান্তি করে দে তাহলে আর যাইগুলা তৈরি আছে
বর্মা তো আরা বাংলাদেশের মাঝে কেয়ালা আগে গিয়ে হলে আরা রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটিলা হন দিলা হিউম্যান রাইট ইকুয়াল রাইট ওমেন রাইট হদিন আরালা নাই না থাকি তার আরারে বছরে আরারে নির্যাতন করতে আরারে লাশ তুই তার আরারে মানুষের মারি ফেলাই জরা দি ফেলাই গোড়া ফানে কল অন্যত ফালা দি ফেলাই বাদে তার আরারে পলিসি করিয়ে বাংলাদেশের মাঝে আরারে ফারকারা দিয়ে আরা বাংলাদেশ হদিয়া নাকান আরা মুসলমানের দেশ দেতলা বলি আরা ফরান বাঁচাই বললা বলি হয়ে আর সাহারা লই বলে আসিবি বর্মা গভর্নমেন্টে হদি কি আর রোহিঙ্গারে দিয়ে আসুম বিভিন্ন দেশ সকলে যদি তারা বর্মার গভর্নমেন্টের দরিয়া এর হইলে মতো লিয়ে আসুম বলি হ ইতার আর যেদুন রোহিঙ্গা থাকে ইতার আর পর্যন্ত আজ নির্যাতন করাত আছে ইতার আল্লাহ হন রাইট নাই হন এডুকেশন নাই হন ইকুয়াল রাইট নাই ইতার আছে দে ভিতরে আর রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটির হনক লিডার পর্যন্ত দানাই হন বালা জায়গা যাইতে দানাই ইতার আর দেশ সকলে যদি বিটু দেশ সকলে যদি দরিয়া দইলে আর লই যাইম হই হ দিতান আর না যাই দিকে আল্লাহ হইলে আর আল্লাহ আজ হনক খানে বালা হনক খান হাম ন আর রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটিলা হনক খান হাম করিয়ে নয় আজ আর রাইট হইতে আর ডকুমেন্ট হইতে আর ঘর বাড়ি হইতে জ্বালা ফেলাইতে আর বিড়া বাড়ি পর্যন্ত আজ নদিব হেরা আরারে তারা তো আজ দিবুম হতে হতাইয়ান আজ ননেলে বিভিন্ন দেশ সকলে দরিয়া সুম হলে দিউম বলি হ আর কমিউনিটিলা আজ হনক রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটিলা হনক খান ন করে আর এটা তখন কুঁজিত দেন আর আছে দিন তারা লুকাই ফেলাই দিন আর আবার নতুন করি রিস্টোর করি পাল্লা হই দিয়ান পর্যন্ত আজ গড়ি নয় এতলা বলি আর না যাই দি আর বর্মার মাঝে খেং গলে যাই হইলে বর্মার গভর্নমেন্টে তো বেগুন ইতারা বর্মার গভর্নমেন্ট যোন নাকি বর্মা আছে মক আছে ইতারা তো পুলিশ আছে বৌজি আছে বৌমু আছে ইতারা তো যেন নাকি গভর্নমেন্ট কল আছে ইনলা আর রোহিঙ্গা গভর্নমেন্ট দেন একু দিল্লা তাকা ভরিব মায়ে হন্দালা সেফটি হদিয়া কেসু নাই মায়ে হন্দালা সেফটি তা ভরিব এডুকেশন ইউনিভার্সিটি হদিয়া রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটি কল ক্লাস 10 পাস হই বাদে ইউনিভার্সিটি ফরি না বারে ইউনিভার্সিটি যাই ফারা ভরিব যেন নাকি মককলে যেনলা ইকুয়াল রাইট ফার রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটিতেও ইকুয়াল রাইট ফা ভরিব বর্মার গভর্নমেন্ট তো মানুষ হদি বা পাবলিক কল ইতার আল্লাহ গভর্নমেন্ট তো পাবলিক হদিয়ান ইম্পর্টেন্ট দে এখন আর রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটি তো গভর্নমেন্ট হদিয়ান ইম্পর্টেন্ট এটা লাই তার আর নির্যাতন করে দিয়ান নগরা ভরিব আর পাবলিক তো হনকা হতা ফুসা লইরে গভর্নমেন্ট তো গড়া ভরিব দিয়ান আর জানি ইনলা ফুটি দেশ মাঝ যেনলা ইকুয়াল রাইট আছে ইনলা আর ইকুয়াল রাইট যদি দে যদি হইলে আর বর্মার মাঝে যাই আর যদি বর্মার দেশের মাঝে লইজার গতি যদি হইলে যি নাকি বিদেশি সকল আছে ইতারা তো আর মদত গড়া ফুরিব আর রোহিঙ্গার রাইটের হন দেশে লদি না পারিব ইতারা তো আর হন দিল্লা ধরনের রাইট লৈ যাই পাইম দে ইয়ান আর দেখা দিয়া ফুরিব বর্মার দেশের গভর্নমেন্টের আর যেনলা নির্যাতন করছে নির্যাতন ই নল্লা বলি গভর্নমেন্টের অ্যাকশন লওয়া ফুরিব অ্যাকশন হলে কি ইতারা আর ফয়নকল বাপকল মাসকল মারি ফেলাইয়ে আর সাজ গড় আছে দিনের ল ফেলাইয়ে যি নাকি আর কাগজপত্র অকল আছে ইনেরও ল ফেলাইয়ে ইনেরে ইতারা তো আবার রেজিস্টর করিয়ে নইয়া করে নেলা দিয়া করিব ইতারা যদি জেলা হতামজি নগরতে যদি হলে বিদেশি অকল তো ইতারারে অ্যাকশন লওয়া করিব বর্মার গভর্নমেন্টের অ্যাকশন লওয়া করিব
With this, we want to close the formal session. I want to thank all my colleagues and participants who have been patient in this long discussion and very fruitful discussion. I want to take this opportunity to invite Mohammad Delwar Hussain, Director General in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to conduct the question and answer session, and of course with it to give his closing remarks. We have over a lot of questions from all across Bangladesh and in all of the world, and I want to forward those questionnaires to Mr. Delwar Hussain to conduct this. Thank you, Mr. Delwar Hussain.
Thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament. Actually, it is my honored to be a part of this event that gathers a lot of young leaders and experts from all over the world. Today we have received a lot of questions from all over the world, covering all the continents. I have gone through all the questions, and I see mostly the people have interest about repatriation, the role of international community in facilitating repatriation. And also some people, they have some certain question about accountability. And also there are some questions about COVID-19 response for the Rohingya camp. And also a few questions about the impact of Rohingya influx on host community and environment in Cox's Bazar. So what I will do, due to time constraint, we would not be able to address all these questions. But I guess most of the questions have been addressed by lucid deliberations of the distinguished speakers. And now I would like to refer a few questions to the speakers. And I would like to put forward 2-3 questions at a time. I mean the similar question, or at least on the similar issue. So first cluster of question will be addressed to UN system. If UN resident coordinator is here, she can respond, and also Steve can supplement. Fatim Al-Absi from Yemen. He has raised a question, why there is no international pressure on Myanmar government to let Rohingya back home. And similar question from Mehbiz from Bangladesh. Part of his question is, can UN compel the Burmese government to guarantee safety and security without intervening the sovereignty of that country? And also, there is another related question. This is from Pacific Hakijimana from Rwanda. He wants to know, if Myanmar agree to let Rohingya back, how will UN and other humanitarian organizations ensure the security of Rohingyas in their homeland and make sure their rights are well attended? Thank you. I give the floor to Mia Seppo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DG. Let me start, and then my colleague Steve can take over on some of the questions as well. I don't think it's fair to say that there's been no international pressure. I mean, there has been, and there continues to be, and there will continue to be pressure on Myanmar. This has had some impact in terms of human rights accountabilities, which were referred to earlier, in particular the ICJ process and the provisional measures. This has also had some progress on the other human rights mechanisms. There is also pressure around some member states who have put sanctions on certain individuals, or economic sanctions on Myanmar. Some of that on the basis of some of the reporting under the fact-finding mission that the Human Rights Council supported. And then, of course, you have the conversations at the UN General Assembly. The visual showed the messaging from the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh using the UN General Assembly. Where there has been less progress is through the Security Council, which, as you know, has been quite divided on this issue. And as we know historically, if you have a divided council, then you have a lack of political will, and political solutions requires political will. But it should be noted that there has been more briefs on the Rohingya crisis in the council in 2018 than any other crisis. And there has been presidential statements on the crisis as well. All these mechanisms together, the human rights track, the search for political solutions, the the preparing the ground for getting a conducive environment for return is all to compel Myanmar. Can the UN or any member states impose on Myanmar? No. So it is this complicated process of engaging, dialoguing, and tackling the issue from many different points of view. And then, of course, it's recognizing that ultimately the decision to return home rests with the Rohingya, who have to have the trust and the confidence to go, and that means the conducive conditions on the ground has to be met as well. So, Dalwadiji, if you would want to continue on this question, then of course Steve can elaborate on the conducive conditions. Otherwise, up to you if you want to continue.
Yeah, if Steve wishes, he can supplement, or otherwise we can move to other cluster of questions.
I think Mia, as the head of the UN system, has given a very excellent answer. I would just say two things. One, there are no humanitarian solutions for political problems. So the political solution has to come first. The challenges that the Rohingya have faced have been ones of identity, but then also governance and human rights. Unless we solve the problems of identity, governance, and human rights so that they can feel at home in the country of their birth, then there can really be no sustainable solution. But we would be present. The question was also, what can you do?
Yes, I had a bit problem with my internet.
So sorry, I lost power.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Okay, I also lost internet connection. And there are also the similar question, particularly on repatriation, and always it is addressed to UN system. Because many people, they feel that UN is the representative of international community. So I have another question, almost similar. That is from Roberta Boyang. He's a Gambian German, but now based in Netherlands. So he wants to know, I wanted to ask whether you believe Myanmar will be safe for Rohingya to return anytime sooner in the near future. As I learned, there was immense social media propaganda against these people. So won't they be met with hostile treatment and continuous oppression if they return? And also there is another question from a Bangladeshi gentleman. What will be the realistic solution look like? So I would like to turn to Mia Seppo if you want to kindly respond to this.
Thanks. I think the issue of, I mean, whether you look at the Rwandan genocide or whether you look at what happened in Myanmar, the issue of hate speech and incitement is obviously an enormous concern and an early warning sign. The issue of increase in hate speech and incitement is a real problem now during the pandemic, and something certainly that young people who spend a lot of time on social media have a key role to play in terms of catching it, stopping it, preventing it, countering it, and getting correct information out. In the case of Myanmar, the issue of hate speech has been a concern, but it's also laws and governance and legislation and access to rights, which needs to be tackled before you would have conducive conditions for return. What the solution will look like, and I'm going to give over to Steve to complement. A durable solution has many pieces. It's not just one thing. It's potentially, you know, in some countries, a level of reintegration. It can be third country resettlement, but of course, it's also return. And you heard from the refugee voices that they want to go home when they feel safe and confident to do so. So over to Steve to speak a bit on durable solutions.
Oh, thank you very much, Mia. And I think the refugees probably have already said it better than I could. What I have heard from, well, there have been many projects inside Myanmar to build houses, to try to create villages. But what the refugees say to me is, I will go back with the same shirt I was wearing when I arrived in Bangladesh and nothing more, and I will rebuild my life if I will be safe and secure, and my children will be safe and secure. So that is the foundation stone of a durable solution, is safety and security. And I would say the other foundation stone, as I said earlier, was governance and human rights. People have to have confidence in the society that they're going to be part of the society, that their rights will be recognized. Many other things can then follow. We can do many things as humanitarian and development actors to rebuild infrastructure, stimulate the economy, even work at the social level to build social cohesion and bring people together. But the most important thing is to resolve the underlying conflict, make people feel safe and secure, and then they will go home much faster than you believe. And I see we have a colleague who's joined us from Rwanda who could tell us many things about the challenges of reconciliation in the aftermath of conflict, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible if there is goodwill and there's effort.
Thank you, Steve and Mia Seppo. I have a question. I would like to refer it to EU ambassador if she's still here. The question is from Tanjida Islam from UK. She says, if one of the problems for Rohingya in Myanmar is hostility that they face, how should we go about changing the hearts and minds of the Myanmar government and some of its people so that Rohingya can be accepted to return? Madam Ambassador, if you are still here.
I think she's not with us, but of course any one of us here today can actually answer the question, I presume.
In that case, may I refer this question to Mofidul Haq sir, from the civil society perspective. Please, Mofidul Haq sir.
Well, will you just repeat the main gist of the question?
Yes, sir. Actually, the main question is what we should do to change the heart and mind. I mean the attitude and line of thinking of Myanmar government and a section of Myanmar population so that they accept Rohingya.
Well, it's a very complex issue, but if we look into the reality, there are a few new elements which is emerging. One is the Arakan identity, which is a new phenomena, and the Arakan identity, they are the mainstream Buddhist Arakanis. They are making a claim that they have been colonized by the Burmese Buddhist authority with the domination over the kingdom of Arakan. And I think this is a very interesting historical phenomena because kingdom of Arakan was a pluralistic kingdom where the Muslims, Buddhists, Karen, and many other nationalities were living together for centuries. Then with the British advent of the British rule and also the domination of the Burmese authority from Yangon has changed the scenario. So this is a very new phenomena. And then another is that Myanmar is very much dominated by the military. And the constitution and the structure of democracy, it's not democracy in that sense. We do not know what will happen in the next election, which is coming, but we cannot place much hope on that. But also there are some signals that even within the mainstream Burmese community, and we know about civil society movement, maybe it is very weak, but they are also raising new voices, especially the artists, the writers, the journalists. So we can think that the society in Myanmar is not one solid structure. So there are pluralistic tendencies, there are many different elements, but because of the totalitarian regime, it is very much a militaristic society till now. So this is maybe one area where we will look forward how things shows in the coming days. But it is also very important for the international community because there are many agreements within the UN and others that incitement to violence, hate speech, using the social media for promoting, instead of promoting peace and harmony, we see that many misuse of the social media, fake news, and all these things. And this has complicated the whole issue. So there is a responsibility also for outside players here. And I think that it's a long struggle, but let's continue the struggle and see what is the outcome. But we think that in many totalitarian society, we have seen that there are changes which was unforeseen, but which happened. So let's hope for the better future.
Sir, EU ambassador is back. I had a question for her. I would like to repeat it now. If she wants to respond, we'd be happy. There was a question from Tanjida Islam from UK. She wanted to know what we can do to change the mindset and the approach of Myanmar government and some section of Myanmar society so that they accept Rohingya to go back. Her Excellency, please.
Thank you. I mean, of course, it's a bit difficult for me to speak on Myanmar because I'm habilitated to speak on the camps in Bangladesh. I'm, of course, not responsible for Myanmar, but I can say a few words on what the EU has been doing in reaching out also to Myanmar, and especially through what we call a balanced approach. As you know, on the one hand, the recent council conclusions for Myanmar have identified sanctions to some members of the military, of the Burmese military. But on the other hand, I think what we don't want in Myanmar is to punish the population. So in a sense, also we continue to support through our development programs the people of Myanmar. And we feel that also by continuing to work in Rakhine State, although in the current circumstances it's of course very, very challenging, through, for example, conflict mitigation, trying to with NGOs on the ground working with the local population to help and prepare the ground so that would facilitate a return. But of course, changing a mindset is extremely challenging. What mindset are we talking about? On the one hand, we have to, of course, work with the people on the ground in Rakhine, but also with a regime that has certain priorities and geopolitical considerations to in its strategy. So it is a very, I think, complex picture, as everyone will agree. And I think the other way is that the international community needs to join hands through the various fora, whether it's the Human Rights Council, the Security Council, despite the challenges there, and to continue. I think what, as Mia also said, and Steve, what is happening recently on the ICJ and the ICC, this is also a process we have actively supported. And as you know, the EU also has actively participated to the creation of the fact-finding mission, and we So this is another avenue we are continuing to hope that in the end there will be a satisfactory solution to this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I would like to pick the last question, and I would like to address it to Honorable Member of Parliament. There is a question from Tashan Fatima from Pakistan. She wants to know, what are your expectations from the international youth and the global community in solving the Rohingya crisis? Honorable Member of Parliament.
Thank you so much. Eventually, this is the ultimate question that comes across. What can we look forward to? The international community, along with Bangladesh hosting the huge influx of Myanmar displaced population, we have done a lot, but our expectations are pretty much set by the statement and recommendations being set by the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in UNGA. It's very simple. We want to ensure the safe return of these Rakhine State population and to ensure a safe transition, as been mentioned by UNHCR, UN representative, EU ambassadors, and everyone that has actually contributed to the session, that there is a process, and diplomacy unfortunately takes a lot of effort and time. The way that we as the youth population have engaged in this discussion, this only shows that we care about the global youth and the population and our future. We have to ensure that we voice for the people who do not have the voice to seek justice, and hence utilize all the means that is necessary to generate awareness and support for those people. Now, diplomatically, Bangladesh has been supported by the international community and have pressurized the Myanmar government to resettle and repatriate these displaced population, but it is taking much more longer time than we are actually assuming to be. So my expectation is very simple. We continue to give hope to these displaced population. We continue to collaborate, work together to ensure their safe transition. And for the time being, of course, Bangladesh being the host country in terms of taking care of them, we need to ensure different aspects that has been discussed: health, education, then mental health, and also there is a couple of questions that I've come across to ensure that they are temporarily being placed under care and they are given work opportunities so that they can actually build and create that environment for self-sustaining for the time being. So, this is a very broader and uncertain future that is existing right now. We are very, as been mentioned, we have to be hopeful that all our efforts go towards repatriation and a safe transition for these people to be sent back to their home country where they get their fundamental rights, and to ensure that everyone has to work together to actually make sure that it happens as such. Sorry, this is a way I can always say it. Thank you so much for the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament. Now, as expected, I am supposed to make some concluding remarks. And I am asked to make my remarks on a specific theme, which is road to peace, solution, and possibilities. Actually, solution is already there, but before embarking on that, I would like to give an overview of where we are right now. Actually, many of you might already be aware that Rohingya are not here for the first time. Actually, they have been coming here for last 4 decades. It has become a perennial problem. And in Cox's Bazar Rohingya camp, you will find many people who are in Bangladesh for the second or even third time. So why it is happening? Because in the past, unfortunately, we were not able to address the core concerns, core issues. And this time, we have decided that enough is enough. This time, better we focus on a durable solution. And we concluded 2 bilateral instruments with Myanmar. And those instruments that covers many areas to facilitate a durable solution. But unfortunately, our intense diplomatic engagement with Myanmar in the last 3 years hardly produced any result. The government of Myanmar, they have yet to demonstrate the political will to resolve this crisis in a durable manner. As UNHCR representative mentioned, they have concluded an MOU that focuses on facilities. But the main issue, rights and related issues, that still remains unaddressed. And to my understanding, that is the core issue, which needs to be sufficiently addressed. And our experience in last 3 years, that suggests that only bilateral or extended bilateral involving some of our partners may not produce the desired result. Probably we need coordinated and concerted international involvement and intervention, particularly meaningful engagement with Myanmar government to find a solution. The problem originated in Myanmar and the solution also lies with Myanmar. We cannot find a solution without Myanmar. We need to engage them. But it is a global problem. It is a global responsibility. All of us should make concerted effort, engage with Myanmar, try to convince them, and also we need to sensitize Myanmar about the potential risk of not being able to settle this crisis at the earliest possible. We have already noticed that refugees, they started getting impatient and desperate. We have witnessed some attempts of perilous journey by sea. And UNHCR chief, when he was addressing at UN Security Council on 18th of June, he warned that there is clear desperation. And in the coming days, such dangerous venture might even increase if we fail to make progress towards permanent solution. So, at this stage, I would like to urge upon the international community, all our partners, to engage in a meaningful way with Myanmar government for a durable and comprehensive solution. And for youth leaders who are with us, we have also expectation from them. Some of them are already in leading position in their respective countries and in their respective fields. And in future, more youth will come up in leadership position. So we'll expect them to bring some contribution towards fulfillment of aspiration and dreams of these persecuted people. With this, I would like to conclude. I would like to return back the floor to Honorable Member of Parliament. Honorable Member of Parliament, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dalwar. With this, we want to end this session, and I hope that this summit allows us to show a road to peace, solution, and possibilities. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of my esteemed panelists who have been very patient over the past 2.5 hours, I presume, almost 2.5 hours, to give their valuable time and their opinion. And I hope that all the participants who are with us, the youth participants who are with us online, they will get a better view out of this conversation. And of course, thank the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, ICYF, and OIC Youth Capital for organizing such a wonderful event. And we hope that from this note we can take some resolutions and work together towards a better world. Thank you so much for your time and valuable inputs. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Stay well. Thanks all.
Thank you, Mia. We'll talk soon, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Dalwar Shahab, thank you. Of course, I had a pleasure of meeting everyone up there, so hopefully we can connect sometime soon. Thank you.